We are recording.
All right. You're...
Okay.
You're listening to episode 1 of Late Night Diner. We are your hosts, Danielle Leonard.
And Michael Kelly, and this is a podcast about music, life, and all things creative.
So for our premiere episode, we got a chance to sit down with Raquel Calderon, an active volunteer at Che Cafe, a DIY collective in La Jolla, California, which I believe is a different city than San Diego.
Don't even know.
The same city, maybe part of San Diego. It's right by, it's like basically San Diego.
I should really know if that's actually part of San Diego.
I'm not from here, so, you know, cut me some slack. But we got a chance to talk to her about her experience booking shows and helping keep such an important space alive.
Hope y'all enjoy.
And we are here with Raquel.
Hi.
How do you say your last name?
Calderon.
Oh, wait. Okay. Wait, what is it on Facebook? Is it something different on Facebook?
Yeah, that's a story, actually.
Okay. I knew it was Calderon, but I was...
We do our research here.
Yeah, but it's like, what is it on Facebook?
Cisneros.
Okay, yeah. See, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to say it. I know how to say Calderon. For the record, I know how to say that name. Okay, sorry.
It's
knew.
okay.
All right, already don't know my shit. Okay, so we're gonna be talking to you today about your involvement with the Che Cafe, a DIY space in San Diego. And yeah, so we just kind of want to know like how you got into doing that and like how you got to the role as a core member today and like kind of what your responsibilities are. And yeah, so basically just like how you got into booking shows and like being involved with DIY music and how you got to where you are now.
Just your origin story.
All right, here we go. So, once upon a time in 2014, the UC system, so I'm a student at UC San Diego where the Che Cafe is located. In 2014, the UC system proposed tuition hikes, and I was part of a group of students that were protesting this action. And we started meeting regularly to try and organize, like, what are we going to do, like, what sort of actions are we going to take to fight this, and this man named David Leo started coming to the meetings, and I'll never forget, we went around the room, I think, saying, like, our intro and why we were here, why we're interested in this, and David Leo, I remember him saying something to the effect of, I'm here looking for a group of politically interested people, and I think I've found it. Which at the time I thought like, oh great, like some like experienced like political activist is here now, which like I think he was, but I would later come to understand that his intentions were to come there and find some people who might also be interested in fighting for the Che Cafe. Mm-hmm. Because at the time the Che Cafe was still like struggling. I believe that this was after the Graduate Student Association at UC San Diego decertified them, and I can get into what that means later, but had decertified them because they had lost their nonprofit status, and even after they had got it back, they were still facing eviction. So David Leo came to the group of anti-tuition hike students, and he convinced a few of us to start going to Che meetings. So I started going to Che meetings in addition to trying to work against the tuition hikes, and I got really inspired by what I saw at the Che Cafe because it was really organized. Everything was like very deliberate and done with a purpose, and it was really interesting to see a group of people sort of operating outside of the norm of what you see at UC San Diego, but doing something really cool and doing something literally on the fringe of campus, like on the edge of campus. Yeah. So as we were involved with the Che Cafe, me and a few other people, the group of students that were organizing to fight the tuition hikes sort of fizzled out, much to my dismay. But I was like, well, there's the Che, and several of my friends were like, well, there's the Che. And about this time that the work against the tuition hikes fizzled out, and I think this is in part, I don't remember if they fizzled out really before or after they actually canceled the hike, but I believe they canceled the hike, so yay. But yeah, the Che was basically going to be evicted, so it was about that time that...
So that was around 2014?
Yes, yeah. And so it was about this time the occupation started, which, you know, was literally just people, like, standing in the building all day, all night, so that they couldn't actually come and change the locks and, like, get everybody out of the building. So, yeah, and then, you know, I just kind of stuck around for 2 years after that, and, like, I have to admit there was a time I was sort of resentful for David Leo for coming to the assembly meetings against the tuition hikes and getting us essentially, like, you know, sneakily getting us involved with the Che, but in the end, you know, I'm a little bit more mature now, and, like, in retrospect, like, it was all my choice, and, you know, at least I was involved in something in that time when, like, other actions fizzled out. So yeah, it all kind of worked out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So how long did the whole occupation last for people who aren't really aware with the Che?
Yeah. So I believe, oh man, if I can get my dates right, it started about, I want to say, like, okay, so I know the tuition hike thing was happening in November, and then I know there's stuff going on December, January. I want to say that the occupation started probably sometime in March.
Okay.
And I know it went on for, like, more than 100 days, because I remember we reached, like, 100th day of occupation. We were like, yay, we've been occupied 100 days. Like, that kind of sucks in some ways, but holy shit, we're doing it. Like,
yeah, that's intense.
Yeah. And, you know, it was a really stressful time.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember around that time, probably like 2 years ago, that's when I first joined, actually. Then I'm in now. And it around that point, that was looking really bleak. Like, it's kind of amazing how, you know, I mean, that has to be a huge part of it. Just, you know, that occupation, just, you know.
Yeah, and the thing that's wild to think about now is, like, shows were still happening while it was occupied, and it's like you come for a show, you take down all the barricades, you do a show, and then you put them all back up. And, you know, it was really stressful, and from what I understand, it was a lot of, like, just sitting around paranoid every time a siren blew by or every time a cop car came by, just for a long time, and somebody had to be there, like, at every point in time, because if you didn't, you would I think you'd be locked out, because, like, it was barricaded. Everything was barricaded. Yeah. It was intense, and I'm really glad that, you know, we are not at that point anymore.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are getting renovations done on it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that if you want. Like, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after the occupation, and it depends on who you ask, if it was the result of the direct action of the occupiers or the result of a change of heart of a school administrator. But basically, somebody at the top decided we're going to listen to them and decided we're going to negotiate a new lease for all the co-ops. So the Che is one of 4 co-ops at UCSD, and the Che is going to be at that table. Not we're going to sign a lease with the other 3 co-ops. The Che Cafe will be represented. Yeah. So the school expressed concerns, and I believe this is, like, the original reason they purported for getting people out of the building, that they think the Che Cafe is unsafe. And I don't think the Che Cafe is unsafe.
No.
What the university...
I've seen a lot of people hang from rafters, and the roof is not falling down. So.
Yeah, the roof's not caving in. Like, I don't know what anybody's heard, and what ultimately we've agreed to is the university is going to pay for the installation of fire sprinklers. They're going to replace our sliding glass doors with doors that have tempered glass, and in an emergency you can push the doors and they'll like fall away and everybody can run out. And they're giving us one accessible all gender bathroom.
Okay.
Yeah, doing some upgrades. And so I mean, it's not like it's gonna like totally spruce up the space, but it's gonna make the school sleep at night, and it's gonna give us license of our space back.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for the lease to be finalized, and then at that point we have a guarantee that we can get back in the building. So then we will leave and allow the construction to happen and come back.
Nice. Okay. So Che has been around since the 80s, right? That's like incredibly impressive for a DIY space. Like, I mean, I have like been involved with DIY stuff for like, I guess a few years now, and I have never even like heard of a space that's been around since the 80s. That's like kind of unheard of. Usually spaces last like a few years, get shut down, or like people aren't down to do it anymore, and you know, they come and go. But so do you think, like, first of all, why do you think it lasted? It's like been around so long, and how do you think being on a college campus has helped or hurt the existence of the space?
So I've been thinking on this a lot actually, and I sort of think that what the Che is it's just this weird magical place of counterculture. Like whatever's counterculture at the time, it's just like plays home to that. So originally when the Che was started, it was like this like greasy burger place. I believe it was called the Coffee Hut then. And then it became the Che Cafe, and you know, it's got its Che makeover. It became like a vegetarian place because you know, back then vegetarian was where it was at. Now it's vegan, and that's when it became, I think, like, you know, like the like that. I think that's when the counterculture really started. From what I understand, though, you know, like it was not at all a sober space back then, and you know, over time, I think just what happens is, like, you know, counterculture feeds into other counterculture, and I think the DIY scene actually came to the Che more than the Che was like a product of any like DIY. Yeah. But I mean, I guess you could say that was DIY before there was a name for it, before it was the scene, because from what I understand is like where like if you know, you have these stereotypes of hippies protesting the CIA, like that is what the Che was. It was a place, it was the place where people who were critical of the war efforts at the time, like that was where they went and hung out. But yeah, so I think that like DIY just sort of was the natural progression, evolution of the Che. I mean, I think that's how it ended up where it is. And as far as it lasting so long, like, I don't know, it's kind of strange, and I feel like you could say this about all four of the co-ops at UCSD, like, they just won't die. Like, and not for lack of, like, the school trying or, you know, and it's not as if, like, it's always had glory days. Like, from what I understand, we're actually kind of at a historical low point as far as core members. And I think just what it is that I think that people get really dedicated to it because it's just special to have something like that in your life. Something that has the principles that it does, and something that welcomes autonomy, and, like, you know, something to do besides work and school, or you know, just like fun or whatever. Like, I think that's a special place. And I also think that the politics of it does help, like, that it lends itself to direct action, like occupying, or some people talked about chaining themselves to the building, like, if need be. It survives because people on the political left go there and they organize tactics like media campaigns and occupation and things like that to make sure that it survives.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that, then a space like the Che just does not survive.
Absolutely.
Totally.
And the college campus thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually think it hurts a lot because And I think this is just goes to show you like what elitist institutions are. Like it's in La Jolla. It's really affluent neighborhood, and that's really inaccessible to a lot of people. And that hurts in the way that I think people that want to be involved in a space like this are often very far away from it. Yeah. And they have to drive all the way over there or take the bus all the way over there. It probably wouldn't even be surviving this long if it was just some random building in La Jolla, but I think being on a college campus, you get people who are thinking about like doing something like this, doing something autonomous and outside like the bureaucracy of the university, and they get attracted to a space like this, so that helps. On the other hand, though, a lot of people at the university are primarily concerned with graduating, getting research experience, so that also hurts in a way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I love the idea that I go to a college that has this, but at the same time, I think it's not in the location I would put a DIY space for change.
Right.
Do you think that's mainly just because how UCSD is as a campus? More along the lines that it's, largely not appreciated by the student body, as opposed to if it was at like a UCLA or UC Berkeley or.
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually haven't really thought about like if the Che would be a little bit more popular if it was at a place like Berkeley or Santa Barbara. I'm inclined to actually think yes. From what I understand, Berkeley does have co-ops that are a little larger than what we have at UCSD. Yeah. So yeah, that's actually, it probably would be doing better, because I think a lot of people at UC San Diego are like, a lot of them do want to be doctors, and that's very hard, and you have to dedicate a lot of your time to other stuff, and you can't really you don't necessarily have a lot of time to run a small business.
It is very like STEM focused.
Yeah. A lot of engineers too, and I think they could do well to come to a place like the Che, but that's just me. So.
Okay, so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the consent-based collective system.
Yeah.
And how it's like crucial in your decision making, and also how you find it possible to all be on the same page and hold people accountable. Personally, I'm the kind of person who's so like, I'm booking this show, like I think this is like the order, this is the lineup, this is like, I'm just like so micromanaging about when I book shows, because I did it literally all by myself for like 3 years. I mean, well, I had my roommate helped me. Henry, if you're listening to this, I'm so sorry. I did it with my roommate, but I mean, I took on so much of the responsibility that like it was like my baby, like everything like had to be like the way I want it. And then I came to Che, and it was like so the polar opposite, and I like had to kind of accept like, okay, like everything you want to do is going to have to go through all these people, and it's going to have to be approved by everyone, which is like, obviously like I wasn't going to come into a place and be like, okay, like I'm running shit now. Like not what I mean at all. It just, I'm so used to being like entirely self-reliant when booking shows that it was a whole like a total switch of dynamics, and I appreciate it, and I think it's like really cool that everyone has to like come to consensus. But I guess because I haven't been around it very often or very much, I'm just wondering how it's possible to like hold everyone accountable and all be on the same page, and all like to make things happen if you have to go through so many people, like, and have to get everyone's approval, like how it's possible to like make decisions like quickly and like,
Yeah. So, the consensus process is really weird if you've like, it was really weird for me the first time I went, and I was like, nobody votes on anything? Like, oh, that's really cool. I actually think a value that maybe the Che Cafe Collective, I don't know, other collectives might do well to do this too, a value that we need to really focus on is encouraging individuals' autonomy. Because I actually think that is in the spirit of what the Che is about. I think the Che is in the spirit of like getting people to trust that they can do things, because like it is like inherently an anti-institutional space. So I actually think that like somewhere there in the ethos of it, there's like, you know, there's a celebration of like self-reliance. And I think that the consensus process does sometimes get misinterpreted as like punk bureaucracy of somehow.
That's also a great band name, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Calling
it. But yeah, like I think that like what it is though is that like people want you to come to the consensus process for the big things, like who you're booking and like when and price, because everybody has a stake in that, in the sense that like I guess it, you know, it being a safe space, like who you're booking matters, because like you don't want to book somebody that would violate the safe space policy. And price, you know, if people might have insight like, oh, you're booking that band, like we should probably charge $7, or you know, like, oh, given the time, let's charge $5. And then
so that's kind of where like the accountability comes in. Just kind of making sure that everyone kind of sticks to that ethos.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, you know, you know, hey, you know, the Che, we don't book like bands that are problematic, or
right.
You know, we don't try to pocket a bunch of money.
Yeah.
For shows, yeah.
Yeah, and then like also like if you think you need a food budget that's larger, like everybody has a stake in like sort of like you expanding the food budget to $100. So that's I think what matters. But I honestly think people would just love it if you worked out everything else yourself, because they, you know, they don't want to have to necessarily deal with all those other details. And it's kind of hard if like you feel like you have something important, and I've actually found this relates more to like non-show dealings. Like if you're like, I want to change how we do question of the day or whatever, or introductions, or I think we should add this to our consensus process, something like that. That is hard to do when you don't like have everybody go to meetings. And I think, I think this process was a lot more like effective like back in like the 80s and 90s, where it was like there was no way to communicate online, so you had to come to meetings if you wanted to do stuff. But I've learned that if you think it's something that's really important, you actually just need to like confide in the people you trust, or like just straight up talk to every member who you think has a stake in it and wants to play an active role and have an opinion, and then you bring it to the group. Or you say, you know what, meeting time is meeting time, and I'm going to bring this up now, because this is when we all should be here, and we can consent to my proposal here, so we're going to go ahead and do it. And I used to worry that if I did something like that, somebody would complain that they weren't there at the meeting, but now I'm just like, nobody's really done that, like except maybe once, and it wasn't for a proposal I did, and I'm just realizing like, you know, like we have to do. Yeah. And you know, if you are consistently coming to meeting and you have something that you think can make the space better, I think that's a deference that should be given.
Right.
Yeah.
So all the shows are volunteer based.
Yes.
Do you find it? So I'm not trying to talk shit. Prefacing this.
This is actually the talk shit part.
I've been to some shows where there's a lot of people but not very many volunteers, and then the person who booked it is very stressed, and they're like, oh, but these people said they were going to come volunteer, they didn't show up. Like, how is it? I mean, obviously there's no sort of like punishment that you get if you like say you're going to do something and you don't do it, but like, I guess when I talked about accountability earlier, that's kind of what I was thinking about. Like, how do you hold people responsible for, A, if you're going to take on a show, properly promoting it, like actually caring about the show, and B, like actually like having volunteers come to the show, agree, and like, you know, keep their word on volunteering. Like, how do you keep that going, I guess?
Yeah, so we've been talking lately about how, hey, look, the volunteer system where you post on the Facebook chat, like, you know, 2 days before the show if you're really responsible, and 1 hour before the show if you like, it slipped your mind or whatever. Hey, who can come volunteer? Is not a good system. It's not even a system. It's just it's shit. And we've all agreed that it is shit, because it does result in things like that. And we've been talking about how, if we're going to run a space like this that is volunteer, we need to straight up systematize how we get volunteers to turn out. And again, this goes back to the weird serendipitous co-ops just won't, or this collectives and DIY spaces like this just won't die. This dude turned up and was like, I want to be like a volunteer coordinator for you all. So we're like, all right, congrats, you got the job. You're going to coordinate our volunteers. Yeah, so we're going to do a Facebook group with volunteers, and we're going to coordinate the volunteers more consistently in a way that's like, oh, hey, you said you have free time on this date, so here's when you're scheduled. Let us know if you can't make it. Something like that. And additionally, the Che Cafe used to be an actual workers co-op in the sense that people paid themselves, and from what I understand, they got paid very well, in the 90s, $15 an hour, I've heard.
Wow.
So we want to get back to being that, and
that would be awesome.
Yeah, paying people for their time, and yeah, that would just be wonderful. So
more of an incentive.
Yeah, definitely. And so yeah, until then, systematize the volunteer system. After that, hopefully we can pay people. But other than that, there really is just you're just relying on people showing up, and it's not working.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it's Lane. Ariel came home, Marty barked, it was scary.
You didn't move the laundry, did you?
Mm-mm.
I don't think of that.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Do you have a question?
Yeah. I just have just a few more questions. This is kind of a softball question, but I think it's interesting. So since 2014, what has been your favorite moment, associated with the check?
Okay.
I know it's hard.
Let me think. There's been some great memories there, but I think it was this one time I had one of these weeks where I booked 3 shows in a week that I was the designated person responsible for, and that was a mistake. That is always a mistake. But yeah, I came to one of the shows really, really tired, and I was thinking I do this thing where I just pretend everything's gonna go in the worst way so that I can be pleasantly surprised when it doesn't.
That's how I go through life.
Yeah, it's useful.
Same.
It helps. But yeah, I went to the show, and this band, Joan of Arc, turned up.
Love Joan of Arc.
Yeah, so they turned up, and I hate to say this, but I oftentimes don't know the bands that. If it's a soda bar show, I don't know the bands, and I tell myself I'm gonna listen to them a little bit before the time of the show comes, but I often find I don't always have time for that. But yeah, they show up pretty early, and I'm still thinking everything's gonna be terrible. And
Oh my god, did you get to meet Tim Kinsella?
I met everybody.
The love of my life. Just
and
This podcast was a bad idea.
But yeah, it wasn't really a moment, just that whole show, everybody was super nice, and it just made me feel what, the world's okay.
Yeah.
And everything's gonna be okay. They were just so thankful to play in the space, and they were happy with any little thing I could get them, a sandwich or a bottle of water, and they gave me a free cassette, and I don't know, a lot of times bands give me free cassettes, but it just meant a lot to me, just how nice they were, and how uplifted I was that night. And the free cassette was still just pretty chill, so yeah. Yeah.
So it was just overall just super reaffirming.
Yeah, and maybe the weird thing about it is I saw them at Whole Foods the next morning, but not in a hi, remember me way, in a passed by in the car kind of way. And it was just nice to see them in the daylight, because you never see bands in the daylight. Like, you just see them as real people on tour. They're just like, they're kind of like rock stars, except like,
they're not like stage goblins.
yeah, and it's just, it was, I don't know, it was just really nice. It was just like, what you do makes a difference in the world out there, and the people who go and like trek to these other spaces.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think Joan of Arc is very, I mean, I fucking love that band, but I think they're like especially like aware of that, because like that band was like very involved in like in, like Midwest like emo DIY stuff in like 90s, and like I feel like they are very understanding of like the struggle that is DIY and keeping it alive.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a pretty hard-hitting question, but
let's do it.
We're a hard-hitting news podcast.
Why do you find what you're doing important? / why do you think providing all ages spaces is important?
Dude, I thought you were gonna say like, what do you hate or something. Like, I was prepared for worse.
How much did you pay in taxes?
I don't know.
Neither do I.
Our finance person does, just for all you out there wondering.
Oh no. Too hard hitting.
Okay, wait. Why do I find what I do important and in all ages space? Okay. So yeah, it's important because I think it shows that, like, you know, it's not easy, but you can take back space for yourself, and you can work with others. You have to work with others in a collective manner if you want to go and do something cool that serves the community, that's outside of the usual, like, own your own business and pay employees, or, go through the school's shitty, like, beg for space system just to compare. It's like, it's important for reaffirming that, like, you get together a group of people and you set up respect, boundaries, and understanding, and you can do a lot of really rad shit. And in providing all ages, for one, I just think it's cool, like, kind of for the reasons I mentioned, and having, like, younger people see that and believe in something like that. In addition to, like, everything else in the world, we try to make young people believe. Yeah. Something a little more, like, I guess a little more uplifting and not cellular labor focused. And all, like, I also think it's kind of good for the people who are adults in a way, because it reminds you that, like, not everything in the world has to be filled, like, not everything in the world you have to do, like, with a beer in your hand, or, like, drugs, and, like, that, young people are in the world and they deserve to interact alongside you and deserve the same amount of respect that you give your fellow adult peers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think all ages spaces are, like, so important. I mean, when I was, like, under 21, I was going to tons of shows, and I don't know where I would be today if I, like, didn't have a space, like, where I could do that in, like, a safe environment. But yeah. Okay. Go.
Kind of piggybacking off that. I have just one more question.
Okay.
I've been kind of going to shows here for probably around 10 years now.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of DIY spaces come and go.
Yeah.
So my question to you, just want your opinion on it. Do you think right now, currently, that just the underground music scene in San Diego, do we have the bandwidth for more DIY spaces, or do you kind of feel that it is kind of everyone's going back to their castles and just kind of hunkering down, because just in my opinion, it's just the music scene here, alternative music is kind of dominated by bar scenes,
To be honest, I don't know if I'm really qualified to answer that question. And this goes back to something I probably should have said before you even started the podcast. I'm surprised you all are interviewing me in the first place. Like, when I think you said, like, somebody in the scene, and I was like, what the fuck, am I in the scene? Like, can
You
I
are.
The scene?
You
Yeah.
Can I swear on a podcast also?
You can swear in our podcast.
Okay.
Swearing.
I was like,
My
what's...
mom will probably Facebook message me
Oh, I'm
about it.
sorry.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry,
I've
Daniel.
been swearing. It's fine.
My
It's
mom
fucking
will.
fine.
Sorry to my mom if you're listening to this. Also,
My-
sorry for everything else.
My parents don't care for my creative endeavors, so this is fine for me.
My parents will definitely listen to it.
Yay.
My mom's an intense supporter.
Yay.
Die hard.
Mom, listen to my album if you're listening.
Okay, yeah, but the question, I kind of feel like, okay, I am in the scene, but I am in it in this very strange, weird way. Like, I don't play any instruments. I don't go anywhere but the Che, except one time I saw tennis at the Irenic, and that was it. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But, yeah, like, I feel like I don't know. Like, I feel like I just barely understand this scene and what's going on. And I guess to sort of go back to an earlier question about, like, how the school helps or hurts, I do think that, like, in a way, the Che is sort of protected by the fact that it's on a university because, like, even though we have to fight in a lot of the same ways that other DIY spaces fight, the school at least nominally is supposed to be about fostering, like, counterculture or, you know, protecting counterculture and about protecting, like, spaces like the Che. So, like, and that's often what the Che utilizes to its advantage is, like, you know, like, that the school cares about its image in the sense it doesn't want police dragging students out of a space, and it cares about, you know, making sure that, like, it's fostering, like, it's less, like, popular or less, like, mainstream spaces because, like, that's supposed to be what it's about. So I guess it's like I don't feel qualified to answer your question really in a number of ways, but also because, like, this is really the only space I've been a part of that has that sort of it's I'm gonna make up a metaphor right now that has that, like, protective coat of the university that's also, like, lined with spikes. Yeah. That was terrible.
The studded jacket. The studded jacket.
Yeah, with the studs on the inside because that's hardcore.
That's so perfect.
That is pretty.
That is very hardcore.
I'm actually proud of that one.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
One last question: Is there anything exciting, fun that's coming up that you want to plug? This is gonna be the podcast where we ask
What do you want to
people
plug?
so what do you wanna plug?
Are there
What's
any
your plug?
cool
Nothing.
bands, DIY projects, organizations, etc.
Restaurants
in
that you
San
like?
Diego?
I was gonna say nothing at the Che because we've stopped programming in anticipation of that construction that's gonna happen once we get our lease done. But other things to plug, so the Irenic, it's in a church. That's cool. I think people listening to this are probably like, yeah, we fucking know. But I found that out.
It is cool.
That's cool. I hear the observatory is cool. I'm going to Little Miss Brewing after this.
Oh, very nice.
What is that?
It's a brewery.
It's a brewery. Yeah. It's a city taco. It's pretty cool.
That's it. That was a plug fest. I love it.
I love it. I tried so hard. Oh, and UCSD is great for research, and you can fight the administration if you join the Che. Come to UCSD, kids.
All right. Join the Che. Volunteer at the Che.
Yeah.
Be involved in DIY because it's ultimately very important.
Yes.
If you want to go to something that looks like a church, but it's actually late at night a rad concert venue,
Yeah.
I'm bringing back the word concert venue.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like a gig, but that's fine.
Gig's great. Gig's better. Great. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Inviting us.
Is there
into your
any?
home.
Are there any last minute things? Oh wait, do you have a piece of advice for someone who wants to be involved in DIY?
In 5 words.
Well, it doesn't have to be 5.
No, I'm just kidding.
1 sentence, 2 sentences, a few sentences.
Okay. Work it and fight.
Nice.
Ooh.
I like it. That's good.
I like that.
There's only 3 words. That's all you need. All right. Well, there you have it.
Thank you so much.
That was Raquel Calderon talking about Che Cafe in San Diego.
Yeah.
So tune in next time, if there is a next time. There probably will be, to Late Night
Oh, yeah.
Diner. This is where we enter the jingle. Doodle-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Thanks for listening to Late Night Diner. Tune in eventually for episode number 2 and more to come in the future. Thanks.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye. Peace out. See ya.